everybody. Welcome to another episode of Purple Insider. Matthew Coller here. And look who is back. Former Minnesota Viking and co-host of Tuesday Morning Left Guard all season long. Look, if they're going to sign offensive linemen, we're not going to keep you in the shadows, Jeremiah Sirles. What is going on, my friend? How are you?
It's arguably the best week of the NFL season, right? I mean, obviously you got Super Bowl week, you have playoffs, you have that, but free agency week is just so much fun because you've got the carousel of players going everywhere. You've got the speculation of who's going to make what, and then it's just the numbers are just always so unbelievable to look at and go, that guy just made $88 million. Or Josh Allen just made $350 million to write like 9 letters of his name. It's just such a fun week. I love free agency so much.
And one of these days, one of
I
your
know.
guys, it's going to
That's the piece of
happen.
it. That's the piece of it, dude. I'm looking at this going, man, how much fun is this going to be in a year or two when I get to make the call and be like, hey, we just agreed to terms, 4 years, 120 million. Thanks, bud. Like, that's the stuff I can't. That's why I got into this job, right? This stuff's fun, but the negotiations that go on in free agency, I got a little piece of it this year with our free agent from a linebacker's perspective, but I can't wait to be in the conversation with big money type stuff like this.
I just want to make sure that when the bigwigs tweet it out, they tweet contract negotiated by former Minnesota Viking Jeremiah Sirles. That's all I ask. They're doing it for
Hey.
other agents now.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I ask is that they give you your full due from player to successful agent.
Yes.
And maybe look, if they drop a link to the pod, I mean,
Yeah.
you can negotiate these things if
It
you've got a good
it
enough
won't be
player.
former Minnesota Viking. It will be Jeremiah Sirles' agent, co-host of Tuesday Morning Left Guard. Maybe, hey, maybe you could be my mole. Maybe I'll leak it to you, and you can be the bigwig because those dudes, they live for this week. I mean, when Twitter was broken on the first day of free agency, they were all panicking, right? I mean, Ian and not McShay. It's Ian, Schefter, and Schultz. Those are the three that I know that like they would all love to fight each other, right? But those dudes, when Twitter was down, they were pure panic mode.
The way that it goes so fast to those guys, I don't even know if you'd have time to leak it to me, but that's a whole other conversation. And that's not usually the pool that I swim in as far as reporters. But let's talk about these offensive linemen, Jeremiah, because I think that this approach is interesting. The way that I have phrased it is basically if someone gave you a $200 gift card to the mall, you go and you're looking at a pair of gloves and going, well, that's not really worth that. But then, my hands are cold and I got a gift card. That's kind of how it is for shopping when you have so much cap space. And I think the Vikings really took full advantage of that approach in the trenches. So why don't we start with the linemen and begin with Ryan Kelly? This decision, I think if it was Ryan Kelly a couple years ago, healthy, would be, whoa, they just got a premier top 3 to 5 center in the league. His numbers are still good. There's injuries there. I think what this tells us is just how badly they wanted to upgrade from Garrett Bradbury at center. And I know we went through this, but looking at the other center options, there just weren't many. There were very few. I remember saying, like, when people would ask, will they replace Bradbury? And my thought was, with who though? And I guess we got our answer with a veteran who is very much proven in the league.
Yeah, because I agree with you. You looked at the center position in free agency, and it was Dahlman, and then I don't know who. I mean, even the deal for oh gosh, I'm escaping. He was a starting center for the Green Bay Packers last year.
Josh Myers.
Not a very good deal, not a great deal, and that was surprising to me too. But I was surprised that that was the first domino to fall. You look at the interior needs of the offensive line, and I felt like Bradbury was the best of the group in the interior piece when you go Brandel, Ed Ingram, Dalton Reisner, Bradbury. So when that was the first domino to fall, I had a little bit of a panic of like, oh no, is that all we're going to do to fix this? Like, we just feel like if we just replace Bradbury, we'll be okay. So that one surprised me. And yeah, I mean, I didn't really think of Kelly because he has been in the league so long. He has been pretty beat up in that piece there. But I mean, those years when Jonathan Taylor was in his prime, running and gunning, going through, and then the command that he's had of that offensive line really since like Saturday left, it feels like he has been such a staple in this league. He's going to come in and steady that room, right? Not just from a physical standpoint, but from a leadership standpoint, from a guy that's been around a lot of football, played in a lot of different stadiums, played in a lot of different schemes. He's going to come in and be able to just command whatever KOC throws on his plate, which, if you're going to have a rookie quarterback, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that Ryan Kelly, if he's healthy, is not a small upgrade from Bradbury pass blocking wise. He's an enormous upgrade. We are talking about one of the best pass protecting centers in the NFL over the last 10 years. And Bradbury last year, the thing was midway through the season, we've gone through this a bunch of times with him, where midway through the season, we're saying, well, you know what? He's playing pretty well and his numbers are better than they were. And then you get toward the end of the season and you get banged up or you lose weight as you go along in the season, and it just slid kind of off the face of the earth from a numbers perspective toward the end of the year. And I think that's where maybe some of the frustration came from KOC, and bringing that up with the interior offensive line was just you weren't getting even average play out of him toward the end of the season. And once with him, you're not even approaching average, then you're talking about an offense that requires the quarterback to sit back there, let things develop, a league that is just running freak shows out there, a DT paying him $26 million a year for a guy who played 500 snaps. I mean, there's just a lot going on. Oh, wow. We have a trade as we're doing this. How about this?
We actually get breaking news?
We
Come
get
on.
breaking, and it's offensive lineman news, but it's not that exciting. Ed Ingram is being traded to the Houston Texans. So,
well, they did just get rid of their entire offensive line, so they needed to do something.
Yeah, they have no idea what they're doing.
What'd they get for him? Do we know?
We do not have that yet. So I imagine as we go along, at least 3 firsts.
I mean, at minimum, right? Maybe even some cash too.
I think when the trade compensation isn't part of the original tweet, we know it's not going to be all that overwhelming. But this we'll work our way over there to right guard. But just to stay with the Ryan Kelly thing, last year, out of all centers that were at least part-time centers, Garrett Bradbury was 40th out of 44 in pass blocking, and Ryan Kelly was in the top 10. I mean, you're talking about eliminating 10, 15, 20 pressures over a season, which is a lot. And we know the numbers when quarterbacks are clean, they're just a lot better at football. So I like it from that angle, and I have major concerns about the age and the injury history. Will Fries.
Hold up real quick before we move to Will. I do think there's some really talented interior depth in this year's draft class. I think this is a really good opportunity for early day 3 to find yourself a good interior guy that's not ready to start, but ready to develop and learn. And there's not a better guy to learn from than behind Kelly. Learn from him, develop under him, be able to spot start in times this year when he is dinged up. And then in 2 years or maybe even a year, hand him the reins and say, let's go. I think that's probably more of the long-term vision with the Kelly signing, with knowing that there's going to be some really good value late day 3 in the interior offensive line play.
And they do have a backup who they really like in Michael Juergens, who they drafted last year. And remember, Juergens was on the 53 and active on some game days over Dan Feeney, who is a veteran. They also have Walter Rouse, who I think they're going to develop and move over to guard, who has a really good athletic profile and is a pass protector. So they have some of that already. And I think veteran offensive linemen can help bring along guys, maybe even more than almost any other position. So a good point. Will Fries is one where when you look at the initial price, you go, that's a lot of dollar bills for a guy who's been in the, I would say, third tier, from the best of the absolute best to above average starters. To me, he is a solid above average starter, but not somebody who's making Pro Bowls, not someone who you're designing your offense to run behind, that kind of thing. Is it too much? Are we not caring about the price? And what do you see in Will Fries' game?
Yeah, it's one of those things. It was the price for this year's free agency, and every free agency is different. And for Vikings fans that are looking at this number going, oh my gosh, this number is so large, that's what free agency is. You get what's available. It's not, oh, well, we get to pick the best guard and who we want in the NFL and then pay him all that money. No, you get your pick of what's available. And Will Fries was what was part of best of available, right? I think he's a better fit for this scheme than a guy like Banks, who went for 77 over to Green Bay. He's a good player. He's limited slightly athletically from what he can do from that standpoint, but he stabilizes a position that has been a train wreck for 3 years. And I don't know if you can put a price on that for the Vikings standpoint of what they've watched at that position now. Tried to fix through the draft, didn't work. Tried to bring in a veteran, didn't really work. They're just tired of dealing with it and they're just tired of talking about it. So you pay what's available and you go and you get him. And there's even part of me that thinks that the Kelly signing was just enough to push his guy over the edge to, hey, I'm here now too. We can like live together and hang out, right? That could have played a factor in this too. I like the signing. I think it's an upgrade from what we had. Time will tell if the price is value or low value, high value, whatever it is. But again, it's what you have to pay for him. He only really truly had 5 outstanding games. 2023 was average. He was okay. I felt like he had a very good 5 games in 24. I actually went back and rewatched all those games after the signing. Like, okay, what are we actually getting? Very solid, very physical, right? Very good technician wise. I think Tony Sperano Jr., who's the O-line coach for the Colts, did a really good job with what he had there with guys getting dinged all year and him playing. So I think it is an immediate upgrade. I think it's a little high on the price point, but you do what you got to do because after him, there was nothing. Like after day one, when they didn't sign a guard, it was Will Fries or bust because there was really nothing behind him besides maybe Mekhi Becton, who's still sitting out there.
The reason that I like it is because you people, you guards, what you often do is get better with age because it's such a technical position. And you mentioned his technical prowess last year when watching him. And a lot of times you have players who, when they start off, are drinking out of a fire hose and the game is so fast and it's so tough that for the first couple years it is a really difficult ride and then it clicks in. And
Mm-hmm.
usually that's year 3, year 4, and then we started to see it from him in year 4 and really year 3. I mean, he had a good 2023, but really started to see it click in. And I think what the Vikings are betting on is this history of offensive linemen who have some of their best years in age 28, 29, even 30 to 31. It ages differently than a lot of other different positions. And to sign him to a 5-year contract was really good for them to solidify that, not just for, hey, patch it over, it's going to be fine. But if you get an ascending player on a 5-year contract and we're 3 years into this and Will Fries has been really good, then you're going to feel like, oh, well, that's like half of what, the other guys are getting at this point, sort of like Jonathan Grenard, expanding player, improving player who we went, well, he was kind of a part-timer with the Texans and then took another step and now 22 million looks
Mm-hmm.
genius. I think that that's a good economic play, even if the average annual value uh, right off the bat has a little bit of sticker shock. So I'm seeing the return for Ed
Oh
Ingram.
boy,
Uh,
7th,
you want to take a guess? It's 2026.
6th, 2026 6th.
You nailed it. 2026 sixth round pick for Ed Ingram. I'm going to go ahead and say that that's a pretty good return. So we both agree, hey, Will Fries, long-term guard, lock him in, going to be there for a long time. That's a good deal for them. But let's just circle back since Ed Ingram was just traded and ask what happened with Ed Ingram? It just never seemed to take that step that we were just talking about.
It's we drafted an athlete that played offensive line. In my opinion, that's what happens. And a lot of times that is something that teams can get caught with in this pre-draft process of, man, look at this guy's testing numbers, look at all that. He was never, in my opinion, a physical prowess, even in college. He wasn't this walk in the room, oh my gosh, look at the size of this dude. He's going to run right through you. You're never going to get through him. He was a credible athlete that tested pretty well and was able to run around, and that got exposed. And once that gets exposed in the NFL, that's a really hard thing to fix. You can fix some limited athleticism like a Will Fries with really good technique and fundamentals. Hey, I got the size, got the strength, got the ability. Now teach me how to use all of this properly. When you get, even this happened to Bradbury a little bit, when it's the tape's out on you and the answer is you can't really stop him from going through you. That's a really hard thing to overcome because, like you said, 24, 25, 26, you're not going to get incrementally stronger. I mean, you're going to get stronger, but you're not going to take huge jumps like you did from 18 to 22. And that was really always the issue with him, is he felt like he always kind of got out-muscled. He got displaced at the line of scrimmage. He never really was able to dent a defensive tackle on a single block. And then once guys realized they were just going to go through him, he started getting into this lunge game where when guys run through you, you start thinking, I got to stop this guy. So I'm going to use my head to stop him. Boop, boop, over the top. Now there's the quick beats, the quick sacks, the quick hurries, all those things. So it was just kind of this combination of he was never truly big enough to be a starting offensive lineman in the NFL, unfortunately.
The way I saw it was that he could have been good with his talent, that he had a physical nature to him, and you saw that sometimes when he would win in the run game. But I think MEs, the mental errors, were the thing that really never got better,
Mm.
which was, oh, there's a blitz. Oh, there's a stunt. Oh, there's a twist. Oh, there's a whatever. And it just, here's how you're supposed to get to the second level. And this happened
Yep.
all the time with Brian O'Neill. You two together, or you with Garrett Bradbury. Now, when you get there, you take the linebacker and you take whatever. And there would be so many mistakes with that, as you know, I've learned a lot from you over the years of what to look for on the tape for offensive linemen. And there's a lot of times where you're like, I don't know exactly what happened, but I'm guessing that wasn't how it was supposed
Yeah.
to be. And it looks like it was his fault. And there was just way too much of that. And if you're the coaches, that's one where at year 3, if you're still making the same mental errors as year 1, and then you have the Matador issue, which is that everybody knew he's just going to charge at us and we can go right by him. And then you had the fast losses. And to me, that's what really defines being bad at that position to me, is if you have a Dalton Reisner pass blocking, and yeah, Jeffrey Simmons is walking him back to the quarterback, but you know what? He's hanging on for dear life there, and Sam could just throw it over him. That was not the case with Ingram. It was just over fast, and the guy's right in the quarterback's face, and there is nowhere to go on interior pressure. If someone beats the edge, you might be able to step up. You might be able to swing back around him, but somebody beats a guard instantly, it's just over, and you got to throw it away. You're going to make a mistake. There was way too much of that. And I think from the start, it was a bad bet to make on him as a prospect, because I think that's your point, is that this was never really a second round caliber prospect. So you reached, and then you hoped, and then you wasted 3 years. And this is what's really hard about drafting linemen, Jeremiah, is that when you draft them, you got to play them. You can't just be like, oh, we'll rotate him in and see if he can do it for a while. Like, you got to play every snap or no snaps. And teams will often choose to just kind of ride it out with a young guy, and then they pull the cord halfway into a season after he's given up the most pressures in the league.
Yeah, and you're exactly right, because there is no ease in period for a high drafted offensive lineman. You're in there, buddy, and it's trial by fire, and you get a year of grace. I do think that if you're a rookie or a second year, first year starter offensive lineman, you get a little bit of grace, but the mental errors, nothing will get you off of a field quicker than that. Especially when you start paying your quarterback $50 million plus dollars. It's a lot to bet on a guy that might slide right when he's supposed to slide left, and here comes Dexter Lawrence straight up the middle. I saw that.
Yes, that
I
happened.
I
Yep.
watched that
Yep.
happen, right?
That happened.
Bradbury goes left, he goes right. Here comes 97 down to just ruin your life. That happens. That's unacceptable. And for me, that is a 100% want to and desire thing. I don't think it has anything to do with how smart you are. It has everything to do with how much work are you willing to put in to truly understand the playbook. We've all played this game since we were itty bitty little people. We grew up into really big people. We have to understand that the NFL is a complicated beast. It's now our job. We have to put the time in to understand what's happening all around us, or else you're not going to play. And I think you're right. I think you nailed it on the head with that. And eventually I just got sick of it and said, okay, cut bait and lose.
And that's why, to circle back to Will Fries, that's why you like a guy like Will Fries.
Correct.
Because it really shows that progress, shows the passion for that position, which you could see in his tape. I mean, this guy likes being an offensive lineman.
Yes.
He likes hitting people. He likes giving that extra little push. Like, he has a passion for this. I'm just not sure that was ever there with Ed Ingram. And if you don't have a passion for being an offensive lineman, it's going to be a tough go. We've seen some guys survive who are athletic freaks, but he was not that. So that's it. A 6th round pick. Good job, I guess. You blew
better
a
than just
draft
cutting him.
pick. Yeah, right. What are you going to do? Right. Anyway, so let's go over to the left guard position, which currently still has Blake Brandel. I don't hate that more than anything I've ever hated before in my entire life if he plays there. okay while Christian Darrisaw was in. It was not okay when Cam Robinson was in. I think that guy can play in the league, but I don't think he moves the needle at all. And there are fast losses that he has. And for someone so big, not a difference maker in the run game. So I think he's a below average type of starter that they need to improve. I'm liking the idea of drafting one there, of bringing in a Gray Zabel or Tyler Booker or somebody who's just going to be that free. Whoop, sorry. Got too excited about football. I know, football, guards, who's going to be that difference maker athletically. But is there anybody else on the free agent market who you think would still be a good choice at left guard?
The only guy that's still out there would be maybe Jenkins from Chicago and Mekhi Becton. Those are really the only two guards as we record this at this moment that are still out there for that piece there. Mekhi Becton, though, I'm very, very, very interested of what is happening as to why he is not on a football team right now. I think there's one of two options. One, he's asking for tackle money, and he might want to move back out to tackle. Two, he priced himself out of the market. He came into every single one of these meetings and said, I want Trey Smith money. I want Landon Dickerson money. Like, I want 22. I want 23 a year. And teams went, oh, okay. Yeah. Sounds good. And then they went, okay, well, we're not signing him. We're going to go sign Aaron Banks. We're going to go sign Patrick McCarry. We're going to go do all this stuff. And now the carousel is slowing down and there's not as many places left for you to stop at. That, or people are just really concerned he truly was a one-hit wonder in that scheme. If you ask him to come to Minnesota, it's a totally different ballgame, my friend, right? Jenkins probably is a little bit more of a difference maker in the run game than Blake Brandel, but they're pretty comparable in pass protection, in my opinion. He doesn't scream, great athlete, stay in front of you, move your feet. He is just a bigger guy that can get in front of people and hold on. Neither one of those guys, I think, is a tremendous upgrade over Blake Brandel. Could Mekhi Becton be if he played like last year? Absolutely. But you're asking him to pass block now twice as many times as he did last year if he comes into this Minnesota scheme.
And with Becton, it's such a small sample size. It's not like he's had multiple years of being really good at that. I mean, I kind of liked that idea for the Vikings, but then the hiring of the assistant offensive line coach, and they've got a history that doesn't seem like it's all that good. But we saw this with Dalton Reisner last year, where Reisner went into free agency looking for certain dollars, and they were just not there. The league did not evaluate him at that level. And when you are part of an Eagles machine, I think that people around the league are going to say, can we really emulate what you were going to have with Lane Johnson to your right? And probably not.
Two Pro Bowlers next to you.
Right. And the offensive line coach that they have, who is the premier offensive line coach in the league. Like, it's hard to do. If the Vikings were interested in him at a cheaper price, if it falls, then that's okay. Brandon Scherff is still out there, and we've been saying his name for forever. I was looking at some NFL Next Gen thing put out, like a pressure rate kind of deal with him, and he still can pass block. I don't think he's an imposing run blocker like he was, but I don't mind the idea of a veteran there and then drafting someone in the middle or later rounds. But there really isn't a big upgrade to be had over Blake Brandel outside of that 1 year kind of Brandon Scherff type of thing.
Agreed. I mean, the hope and dream would have been you could have stole Kevin Zeitler like 1 year for the 8 or 9 that he got. But I think right now they're okay with Blake Brandel there, and maybe Walter Rouse is a guy they're excited about to be able to come in and compete as a guard in that piece there. Maybe Michael Juergens took a big step this year, and maybe he can play some guard. Or I do think they'll be looking to bolster that interior line because, like I said earlier with the Kelly thing, it's as deep as a guard class as I can remember in the last 2-3 years. So there's going to be some really good value late day 3 guys, early day 3 value pieces there that could come in and potentially compete for starting spots.
How about the other side? Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen, 2 players old enough for you to have been in the league when they were in their primes. They certainly are not anymore, but I was thinking about it this way. Once again, with you're going to the mall with lots of money and it doesn't really matter what you spend on it right now. But if both of these guys are healthy enough and they've slid down from being top 5 pass rushing, top 10 pass rushing type of defensive tackles to top 25. Sort of like the same argument you make with why would you bring in Cooper Kupp? Well, he's not the offensive MVP before or anymore, but he could catch the ball still and he could get open, he can make plays. So he would be a good in a certain role. I kind of look at it this way. they are spending a lot of money for that. But when you go through the league of defensive tackles, BJ Hill, no idea what you're doing signing that contract with Cincinnati, but he was off the board almost immediately. Tashawn Wharton signs a huge deal with Carolina. Congratulations to him, but I don't know if that's the best economic deal to make off of 1 year with 6.5 sacks. So I looked at the defensive tackle market where it was either you take a risk here or you just get nothing. And with the money they have, take the risk.
Yeah, absolutely. Take the risk on proven players. Right? It's not a flyer on, like you said, a Milton who played 500 snaps this year.
Milton, yeah, that was his name. His name was Milton what?
Williams.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, Milton Williams. I know.
Okay.
I knew that.
You were hunting.
It took a second. It took a second.
Milton.
The cog clicked for a second. But that was a 500 snap a year guy. That's 1,000 snap a year, 900 snap a year type money that you just paid him. Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne for that Washington Commanders team never came off the field. They were on that field all the time, whether it was base, whether it was nickel, it did not matter. Those two guys never came off the field. So now you bring him back in, add Jonathan Allen to this system where he doesn't need to be on the field for 900 snaps anymore because of the way we rotate and the way we move things and the way we put pieces in. You're going to get the best of him because he's going to be able to stay healthier, not being the 900 snap a year guy. Could he still do it? I think so. He's still very physically imposing when you watch his tape, but you're not going to need him to do it, which is what I think is great. And then you spell him with Hargrave and that piece there too. It's buying pieces that you don't need to pay top money for, but have been top money guys. And you think, okay, if we cut their rep counts by a third, that prime is still in there. That juice is still in there. That it's still ability to get out. We're just not going to be able to ask him to do it for 900 snaps throughout the year.
And you're not asking him. This is what I like about each flawed move in the accumulation of it is you're not asking any of these guys to change your team. You're asking them to solidify your team. So you already have a second team All-Pro in Van Ginkel, somebody that could have been All-Pro in Jonathan Grenard. Harrison Phillips is a solid NFL player. We've seen that for years now with him. His health record is really good, and he can move bodies up front for you. So those are your key pieces already. Now come in and solidify this thing. Same with the offensive line. If you're trying to go into free agency, like, let's get a franchise left tackle here. No, you're just not going to do that. Same thing with, hey, let's go get a 12 sack, 80 pressure edge rusher. Not going to happen. Usually, I mean, the Vikings got Grenard that way and kind of lucked out with it, but normally that's not going to happen. So they're asking Allen to come in and get 40 pressures. Hargrave, get 40 pressures, combine for 12 or 13 sacks, a sack a game from the two of you or something in that ballpark is such an enormous upgrade over what they've had there for how many years. It's really been since Sheldon Richardson in 2018 that they've gotten anything. Armon Watts had like a minute where we went like, well, maybe Armon Watts is, but that's what we've been talking about is maybe
James
this
Lynch.
guy.
Don't forget James Lynch.
Yes. Kyrus Tonga, it's just maybe this guy, Jalen Redmond even. I look back and I was like, yeah, Jalen Redmond's pretty good. He had like one pressure. It's just like, maybe not. Maybe you need somebody who's really been good at this for a long time. The health record is concerning. My thing with talking about guys' health is that's the best I can do though, because how am I supposed to tell you if he's going to get hurt? Mm-hmm. Last year, Aaron Jones was concerning. So was Andrew Van Ginkel. He had a foot thing. I don't know. Sometimes they stay healthy. Sometimes they don't. Davenport was concerning and he was out early in the year, right? I have no idea.
Yeah. The health thing's always the knock anytime you're 28 plus, right? It's always the risk of, but anyone can get hurt at any time. This game's violent. It's part of the game. And it's why you have to build good depth on your roster. And it's why I like the idea of signing guys that you're not going to ask to be every single down starters. They're rotational. They're going to start, but you're going to feel really good about some guys. You're going to draft some guys because talk about the O-line class. The interior D-line class is chef's kiss. I mean, it is so talented. You bring in some young guys to learn behind those two vets, you're cooking with gas now.
All right, Harrison Smith is coming back. And I saw Ben Lieber tweet the other day that he said, well, I guess I cried in the Arizona locker room for nothing. I got to tell you though, even myself, when I saw Harry walking out in the bowels of the Arizona State Farm, whatever it is,
Yeah.
if University of Phoenix.net or whatever stadium. But when I saw him walking out, I was like, hey man, if this is it, like it's an honor. I think we all kind of thought that this could be it for Harrison Smith, but he decides to come back. Why do you think grown men linebackers who could beat me up so easily are brought to tears by the idea of Harrison Smith not playing anymore?
Anytime I call Harry a legend, right? He is a legend in my mind of what he's done, the high level of play he's played at for so many years. You and I have talked before. If he's on a multiply, like if he wins one Super Bowl, he's already wearing a gold jacket. He still might when it's all said and done. This what he's been able to live through regime wise, players. I mean, he was like best friends with Anthony Barr and Andrew Sandejo, and then they all leave, and then this new class comes in, and they love him, and he's like the dad of the group now, and just the way he's morphed from young stud, Pro Bowler, All Pro, veteran leader, stable position. It's just something you don't want to see those guys go. You don't want to see those guys leave. I love turning on the game on Sunday and seeing the long arm sleeves of number 22 running around in the backfield or in the background, running at the line of scrimmage and sprinting to the deep third. And I mean, you just don't want to see those type of guys go. And anytime after an emotional win like that, or emotional loss like that, excuse me, when it's going to feel like maybe this is the end, he probably felt like absolute dog crap, right? When you're old and your body's beat like that, I mean, getting out of bed's probably tough. And so he's like, I can't do this anymore. You give the guy a couple months, you let him go down to Arizona and sit in the sun and feel good about himself. I could probably do this a little bit more. I'm getting old. They're not going to put every rep on me during training camp anymore. Let the young guys do that thing. I think that he just feels like he's still got some left in the tank. And was he as disruptive and everything as he was been in the past years? Not as much, but he's still a top 15 safety in the entire NFL.
He's still graded higher than guys who got huge contracts in free agency last year by PFF. There's the splash plays aren't quite as high. The sacks flying off the edge aren't quite as high, but still create a fair number of pressures as a blitzer. I think the biggest thing for him, I did a story about this last year, talked to Harry about it, is when he came back, he said, one of the reasons I came back last year was for Brian Flores. Guy just loved working with him. Those two are 99.9th percentile football psychos. They
Mm.
are lunatics. They love this game more than anybody. And they also love the creativity of it, the mastery of schematics. They work together. So Brian Flores will say, what if we try this coverage against this look? And Harrison Smith gives him feedback. And then on the field, Harrison has become an extension of Brian Flores because every call has other calls that you can get to. It's no longer where they just send in the call, play the defense. That's how it is. That's not how football works anymore because the offenses have so many checks, they have motions, they all these things. The counter to that is having Harrison Smith, who can see a motion, see a formation, see a check, see a offensive line change and go, all right, their tendency is that they do this, so we're going to change that coverage. And knowing all that Brian Flores has implemented throughout OTAs and training camp fluently, he can make those changes quickly, instantly from seeing the recognition of what he's seen on tape. And it's one of the reasons why they have such a freaking good defense. And so you may see it and go, well, Harrison Smith didn't get downhill as fast as he used to, or, maybe he would have picked that ball off and instead he just knocked it away. You're only seeing 10% in the plays that he's involved with of what's actually going on out there. And I think his passion for working with Flores has been something really special. And I got to ask Metellus and Bynum and Harry about it. It was really cool to hear them talk about behind the scenes. It was like two artists talking about, putting together a painting or something with those two in scheme. So having another year of that, I think solidifies this defense. It answers the last question, which is just what's going on at safety and can they be as dynamic schematically? Now we know that they can. So my question for you is, we've gone through all these moves. There might be more to come, but I think a lot of the big ones have been done. How good are the Minnesota Vikings?
They're as good as their quarterback. I think that they've built a Super Bowl contending roster. right? You look around the league and you want to compare position by position, roster to roster. The Vikings are probably top 7, right? And you talk about how many teams actually have a shot of winning it every single year. You probably go into the year with about 6 or 7 teams, and it's the normal characters. It's Josh Allen, it's Patrick Mahomes, it's okay. Jaden Daniels is in the thing. It's Jalen Hurts. You're looking at the Vikings going, they've got a lot of unbelievable players on this roster. Who's the trigger man? And I can't even begin to put a win total on this football team until I know for sure who that is. Is it JJ? Is it Aaron Rodgers? I don't know. There's so much speculation. And if it is JJ, I think this team will be as good as he is because he's technically a rookie. He's still a rookie in my mind. Yes, he's had a year in the NFL to grow. He's got to do all that stuff, but he has never stepped on the gridiron on a regular season Sunday for an NFL team. I don't know what we're getting out of him. We obviously drafted him at 10, so we believe he can be a Super Bowl contending quarterback at one point in his career. Is he there right now? I don't know. I saw a report today that we're all celebrating he's over 200 pounds. Why are we doing that? Why are we all celebrating that? Like, is that a problem? Is that a red flag? I don't know. There's just so many question marks with that right now.
I've been over 200 pounds for a long time.
Yeah,
I don't know what.
3rd grade? I don't know.
I was going to say, yeah. When did you clear that threshold?
I want to see a 2 on the scale again. Let me put it that way. I'm tired of not having a 2 on the scale for right now.
Come on. So what did you play? What did you play at? Like
318? Yeah, 315, 318.
That's pretty husky.
There. Yeah, I was a large human.
Yeah,
big,
you're a large gentleman. So I think that what we have seen in recent history is young quarterbacks succeed when things around them are good. When the receivers are good, when the coaching is good. I mean, even like Sean Payton, we shouldn't have doubted that Sean Payton could get a young Bo Nix to the, and I say youngish, Bo Nix to the playoffs. That is what is a little different about McCarthy than some of the other quarterbacks, though, because Jaden Daniels had a ton of college experience. Penix came in, looked pretty good right away. Nix came in, looked pretty good. The younger quarterbacks struggled more with Williams and May, but also they were dealing with much worse circumstances. There have been a lot of young quarterbacks, though, in recent years who have been good or taken their teams to the playoffs very quickly. We saw it from Justin Herbert was really good right away. There's a bunch of examples. Brock Purdy even was really good right away when he had the coaching and the situation and the defense and all those things. That's not to say that I know any better than anybody else how McCarthy's going to look, but I think confidence rating should be pretty high. Seeing what Sam Darnold, known as one of the biggest busts in the league, did, like, there's a lot of reason to put 2 and 2 together and go, this, if you can't do this, and then seeing what we saw, how he handled himself and the training camp, all that stuff, they should believe in it. This was your plan all along. And that's the biggest thing for me, Jeremiah, is when Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell take over in 22. The goal is by 3 years from now to be saying you're a top 7 contender going in for the Super Bowl. That's your goal. That's how you try to get from point A to point B. And you and I were here doing this show when they took over, and we were saying, how do you get there? It's not going to be an easy road. And it kind of was a much easier road than we thought, but I think that they are there. They can't be done yet. They have to hit on some draft picks. For the love of my sanity, they have to hit on some draft picks. Dallas Turner has to improve next year. Like, there's a lot of things that have to click in for this to happen. So the way I look at it is everything they've done has made a lot of sense, and you can see the vision, but you're going to have to climb the mountain in order to get there. And there are things you can't get hit with tumbling rocks on the way down in order to get where you've set yourself up to go.
And they have to do what they've done the last couple of years, which is stay relatively healthy, right? Back to the health thing. Stay healthy. Some of these big time signings, you can't have them miss 8, 9, 10 games, whatever it may be. But the big X component here for me is Kevin O'Connell. What he's been able to do to lead that locker room, to get the guys to buy in, to bring in guys free agent wise, that there's not one guy that they brought in free agent that's got like a character question mark. All high character guys. I think they've reached a level now as a program, as an organization, that they go, we don't need to bring in the questionable, really good player, questionable character guy, because we know what we're about in this locker room. And Kevin O'Connell's a quarterback whisperer, man. I mean, he can get what he got out of Josh Dobbs. He just got Nick Mullins paid. He got Dobbs and Nick Mullins paid. Make no mistake about it. Kevin O'Connell got those 2 guys paid this year for what they're going to be able to go and do. I think JJ McCarthy's the next line of the quarterback whisperer to go in there and be able to do his thing. I know this is a total retraction of what I said about a year ago this time, but I have faith in Kevin O'Connell and what he's going to be able to do.
Well, when we get new information, we change. I think this is not of the way that media is supposed to be done now, like on the Yelly shows, where you just say LeBron stinks forever, and then you're just wrong for 20 years and people keep watching, or whatever the plan is there. For me, I've got skepticism about McCarthy as a prospect, and then he gets drafted and I get to see him and I go, okay, now I've got a lot less speculation because I've seen what he's like. And you never know what somebody's like until they actually get there, no matter what they were like in college. And to me, he handled himself as a true pro from day one, which again ups that confidence level and kind of a freak injury thing. I don't know. We'll see. But I really like where they're at as a team that has turned themselves into from an old cap strap team that was desperate and just trying to trade for Chris Herndon to save your butt, maybe, to now making big time signings because they've got lots of cap space and turning it over to an exciting young quarterback, assuming that that is the way that they're actually going to go. Before we wrap up, we need a love to see it, hate to see it on free agency edition. I'm going to throw hate to see it. Russell Wilson in Berea, Ohio. That's like, just come on, man. Just Russell Wilson was great. He was such a good quarterback. And now he's in a van and he's in that hellhole in Cleveland in the middle of nowhere. Just like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. What are we doing, Russ? Hate to see it. Let it go. Cleveland stinks. You're not making the playoffs. You're not going to be good there. They have no receivers. Their owner is a fool. Like, what, you just look at that facility. You're just not going to be good. You're not going to be good. Let it go. My hate to see it is Russell Wilson. Let it go.
Also, I want to be a fly on the wall when Russell walks in and Jerry Judy's sitting there like, you again. Right? Like, I thought I got away from you. I don't want you back. Why are you here? Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one with where Russ plays out. I hate to see it for me is the Super Bowl window is officially closed on the San Francisco 49ers. It's done. You're selling the car for parts. You're trying to figure out what you're going to do at the quarterback position. You have a fantastic head coach. I think John Lynch is a very good general manager, but they did like anyone should. When you feel like you have the roster, you go all in, you put everything in the bottom and in the bottle, whatever it is, go for the Super Bowl. It doesn't work. Got to pay the piper, right? Now you're shipping pieces off. You're going to have the most projected dead cap in the NFL. It's just not going to be a good time to be in the Bay Area here for the next couple of years as they strip it down and start over.
My love to see it is really hilariously goofy photoshops of players in other jerseys. It's one of the things I like the most because we've gotten a lot better at it, but we're also not perfect. And or AI is not doing it right, and the guy's got too many fingers or whatever. It's just there was one that I sent out, and I'm sure the Yahoo person is talented and tried their best, but the filter they put on Aaron Rodgers to the Vikings made him look like a soldier that had just seen unthinkable things.
Yep.
And it was the funniest. I just was like, we got to stop doing it. Who wanted this? Did someone want this? Was there someone who said, you know what I'd really love to see is what he looks like in a Vikings helmet, color it purple? I mean, no. So that's definitely one thing. I mean, love to see it's are hard to find because sarcastic hate to see it's are so much better. I mean, the Steelers for so long, what an unbelievable organization they are with Ben Roethlisberger. It's like hate to see it is these teams that had really great quarterbacks and acted like they were just the best franchises with the best coaches, and then they can't find them. And they're going, maybe we could get Justin Fields. Maybe we could trade for Geno Smith and pay him or something. Like how about that for I hate to see it is that people act like Geno Smith's a great quarterback.
I know.
I just don't understand it. The film people just seem to love him and he will win you 8 or 9 games. I mean, that's just the truth of who Geno Smith is. I get it. I was there when he made 3 of the sickest throws I saw all year, but that's not a football game. That's not winning the football game. So I don't know. Teams floundering is like hate to see it as in, oh, the Vikings like plan this out, exit from Kirk, draft their quarterback, have an answer. And all these teams are just floating out in the ocean going, Mason Rudolph, you want to come sign with us?
Yeah, the quarterback needy teams right now. I mean, the fact my hate to see it is the New York Giants have Tommy DeVito as the only quarterback under roster for them right now. I- Are you just fully convinced that you're going to take Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders and ride off into the sunset? It's a scary place to be as a front. I mean, if you're the Giants, you're going Atlanta. Just cut him. Just cut Kirk. Just cut him. We'll bring him right here, right now. Like, just we'll take him. We'll take him because Sunday is that post designation. If they cut him, they have their own like 10 million or something. If they don't cut him before Sunday, so I do think my crystal ball is people haven't pulled the trigger on Aaron Rodgers yet because they're waiting to see what happens with Kirk Cousins. So
Which again is a sarcastic hate to say. Oh,
hate.
that's a shame. That's a shame. Some other team's going to spend a lot of money for
Oh
nothing.
shoot.
Too bad. A lot. What I'm watching is a lot of coaches get fired like
In
8 months
March.
before they get fired. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's just like Brian Dable's not going to make it. I
Mm,
mean, the guy from Tennessee, they signed a tackle who's not good for a gazillion dollars, and they're going to draft Cam Ward and play Brandon Allen, I think they signed. I
mhm.
mean, you just hate to see coaches fired in March, but that's what's going to happen. Enjoy that breakfast at the owners' meetings, guys, because it'll be your last one for a while. Anyway, it's just tough. It's just tough. But I do love to see the draft is now a lot more intriguing, and the doors are open for the Vikings to do a lot of different things in the draft, kind of whatever they want. I mean, the other day, Chris Trapasso, CBS draft analyst, said, "What if they just drafted a receiver?" And I was like,
Oh,
but wait,
but
I'm seeing terrible receivers get tons of money, and maybe 3 receivers is good." Like, that's kind of where they've set themselves up for. So kind of love to see that.
yeah, they don't have to they can truly draft best available right now instead of positional based, which is always good to have. Find the best available piece in there. My last hate to see it is I'm sorry, CJ Stroud. You were crushed last year. You were sacked. You were hit. You were unspeakable things. And then they traded your all pro left tackle. They traded your starting guard and they brought you Ed Ingram. I'm sorry.
That is pretty that's pretty tough. They only gave up a 6th, for nothing. Okay, what one last one.
Okay.
Hate to see that the Packers still don't have WR1.
Hmm.
They told me the Packers said, no, no, it's actually all you do is throw to Jefferson like dummies. What you should really do is have 8 guys who are just okay. And they're like, I don't think that's how football's ever worked, but
Mm-mm.
sure. All right. Well, we're gonna go get T. Higgins. And you're like, no, you're not. Like, well, what if we get Devontae back? Probably not, though. They got nothing.
Romeo Dobbs, baby. Romeo Dobbs, and you'll get Christian Watson
Aiden
for 8
Aiden
games a
Reed,
year.
yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, well, it's a shame. So anyway, Jeremiah Sirles, we'll definitely check in again for the
Absolutely.
draft, maybe a little draft preview at some point, but I appreciate the hardcore breakdown and breaking news mid podcast, which doesn't happen to us too much. Usually happens after the show. I've been on a run. Like I was about to wrap up a pod the other day and Harrison Smith comes back. I'm like,
Oh,
I am on absolute fire right now. And then it happens again today. So great stuff from you, my friend. And we will talk again soon.
football.
Football.